the first clarification is the focus of my talk is not so much assessment. I'm taking assessment practice as a tool and looking at the possibility of teacher development, self-sustained teacher development. So this is not a session where the details of assessment are going to be talked about. And I'm making the distinction between what we've already talked about, pre-service preparation and in-service support. These are the two main areas of activity that most of us engage in. I have a small argument that I'm developing. Oh, sorry. In-service support, there are many possibilities. And we were talking about it yesterday in various sessions, teacher research, etc., etc. I'm just listing this very, very quickly because it's familiar to all of us. Now, I want to suggest, and here's where I'm bringing in a small argument, that if you remember when we started yesterday, Simon Borg said, how many of you are teachers and how many of you are teacher educators? Unfortunately, he didn't have a third category similar to George, was it, who said left brain, right brain, and no brain. I think within the teacher educator category, I want to suggest there's something else called the resource person. Because within our system, the teacher educator is actually somebody who is assigned to in pre-service work, like the faculty of education departments and teacher training colleges. Now, a great deal of our work is in the role of resource person for in-service support work. And I think this is a professional identity we need to reflect on and understand a bit. So that's one of my premises or arguments that I'm implicitly making. And my talk really is about, the few minutes that I have with you, is a search for a better understanding of the role of the resource person. Because the teacher educator, as I said, has a certain specific role. And a lot of us are also, some of us are also teacher educators in the strict sense, but most of us, I think, are roving, floating resource persons. And a lot of our work needs to be understood in that context. That's my... Now, if you run quickly through that, I'm also arguing that most of our work in ELT is related to in-service work because the pre-service syllabus and activity does not really come within the ambit of most of our ELT conferences and such things. There used to be something called the annual conference of the ELTIs and education directorates for about 30 years, from the 1960s to the 1990s. Apart from occasionally lamenting the fact that the B.Ed courses are outdated, there was nothing that we could do directly because there are 150 university boards of studies are involved. And the primary training program, the D.Ed, is a departmental activity, which again is not easily influenced by seminar processes and so on. So I'm saying that ELT work, the ELT professionals' activity is largely in the in-service. It's a statement of fact, but I think it is significant in terms of okay, the same thing, refresher course. I'm using the generic term refresher course to separate it from the structured B.Ed or the AMIT course. And this has received a lot of bad press over the several years. Many people have been talking about the inadequacies and the unsuitability of all these courses and so on. But that's a token for what we are dealing with. They could be 5 days, they could be 10 days, they could be 2 weeks. But this is really what we are peddling most of the time, in the guise of in-service work, while we are searching for other alternatives. And it's in all subjects. Under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, we started this in a massive way, mandated refresher courses, which goes on. So there's a huge industry, at least in terms of time. Commercially, there's a lot of money spent. Output, I'm not very sure. Desperate measures. So refresher courses will stay. As far as our system is concerned, the refresher course structure is going to be there. We are far too heavily invested in it. Too many budgets are allocated, too much of policy research, so that we have to live with it. Now, I'm making a somewhat, okay, this is an argument about refresher courses that we have no model for it, which is why they are in the sad state that they are in. I don't mean one tight model, but there must be some base from which one adapts. They should be need-based. But I don't think we have a model where we make it need-based. And I want to suggest one reason for this, that most of what happens in the ELT, in-service work, refresher course mode goes back to the Madras ELT campaign of the late 1950s. And I think many of us who were around will say that that was the big bang with which ELT appeared on the Indian scene. It was in the state of Tamil Nadu, and the RIE and the ELTIs, all the work that subsequently came from that very intensive work on retraining existing teachers. Okay. Now the point about that is, and I think the diploma courses, certificate courses are all in-service courses, though they are structured, in fact certified courses, they are not prerequisites for getting into the profession. You have to have a B.Ed or a D.Ed. That's what qualifies you to be a teacher. So this is an add-on course. I don't mean therefore it's unimportant, but as an add-on course, there is no built-in, the original idea of these refresher courses is to reorient fairly competent teachers into new methods of English, teaching English. That was what the ELT mandate has been. Now, underlying this is where one of my big arguments come. We are saying that there's a gap, that there's a deficiency in what teachers know. And this has to be filled by inputs from outside. So the refresher course model, the generic refresher course model, is not a need-based evolving program. It is always pre-packaged. And that is one of the weaknesses that I think we've complained about in many, many different forms over here. So I'll leave it at that and move to something slightly different. Okay, it's the same point I've made. And I'm saying that the possibilities of restructuring refresher courses is limited. So I'm making a somewhat cynical statement here, but I'm not going to address that. We have a lot of time to discuss that in other fora and in other sessions. I want to suggest that we need now seriously look at other modes. If I'm arguing that the refresher course mode is limited, what are the other modes? We've talked about various ones yesterday, teacher research, teacher groups, and so on. I'm interested in this on-site support. Now, in our system, beginning with DPEP, now with SSA, we have the cluster, concept of the cluster resource person, and the block resource persons who are supposed to visit schools, not to inspect, but as resource persons. Now, so the category of resource persons, which is formally created under SSA and DPEP, is an animal not in the inspectorate. We've got to remember, this is a very important facility that we have in our country, of an intermediary set of specialists who are there to support teachers. But that role, of course, is not being implemented very properly. The second part is really what I'm talking about. On-site support tends to be a short visit where there's guidance given to teachers, inspection in its best form, observing, getting some information, giving some. But that is still one-to-one on a very located basis. I'm suggesting there's a different possibility. Facilitating analysis at the group level of instructional requirements, ideas, which can expand the teacher's sense of freedom and autonomy. Now that's really what I'm talking about. That is, teacher resource groups, communities of practice, the various things in the last, I've been through all the tech reports of networking, using SMSs, or using media. All of this relates the teacher to another group. I think the teacher needs support where she or he is. That is in the local institution. That is the local department, colleagues in the other sections of the school. You see, that is the teacher's primary group. And while networking with other teachers of English, with people elsewhere in the block is very important. I'm not decrying that at all. I'm saying that has certain limitations, and we need to enrich it with something else. So this is the idea that I been thinking about after listening to all the problems of the traditional in-service work through courses. And I had the chance to be an interlocutor with two groups of people. One is at the Hyderabad Central University. The Department of Center for English has been working on courses for the foundation year after they started taking in undergraduate students. So it's a bridge course in English. There's a team of teachers and there's a certain flexibility. So I've been there 3 or 4 times. We've had discussions. The idea was to see, can this curriculum be made more flexible? Can it be adapted to students' needs within the framework of the larger syllabus? So, which is a local initiative at a group level to make the curriculum more helpful, meaningful, relevant to the teacher's needs and the students' needs. Another group, again, where I've had the opportunity to be an interlocutor or an interloper, is the English department, group of English teachers at Anna Technological University in Chennai. 2 years ago, I went there for a seminar and a workshop. They said, come back for another seminar. After some time, I said, look, you get together and you do something on your own. You look at your syllabus, you look at examination answer scripts, you look at feedback and see if you can evolve something. Now, in a small way, that is beginning to happen. I was supposed to go there for a workshop in December. I was not too well. I could have traveled, but I said, look, I can't come. You get together and do something on your own. Now, that has happened in a small way. Now, nothing wonderful, but what is the significance I attach to this? I'll pause to pick up what is in my title about assessment practices. 2 years ago, I gave a talk on CCE, and one of my arguments was that CCE, if we understand it, is something for the teacher to do and something that only the teacher can do. The CCE, the C, the continuous, has to be part of the flow of teaching. It is not something for which, though the CBSE and every SCRT in this country has produced mammoth forms to be filled in. That is for reporting purposes. That has nothing to do with the process of CCE. The CCE is a local, adaptive, flexible, on-the-fly activity which has to be done flexibly. It is also formative in nature, and that is where its strength lies. It means that the teacher responds to needs that are felt. Not only to gaps, they're able to encourage and extend students who are doing well, provide support, specialized assistance of various sort to those who need it. Now, this is what the teacher's work is. And I'm saying this assessment practice is where the teacher comes into his own as a teacher. That is, responding to students' needs. CCE is important because without CCE, we don't hear the voices of our students until the unit test, until the terminal exams. Whatever we say, learner-centered methods, dialogue in the classroom, we are covering portions. The students are nodding, occasionally answering questions. We are not hearing their voices. And when the answer script comes, we don't have time to look at it. We can only mark it, fill in the registers, and start the next unit. So people say feedback, 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 keep asking. If the unit ends on Saturday, you have the unit test, and you start teaching new portions on Monday, where is the feedback? Where are you responding with needs? Where is the so-called remediation? This has to become part of the smaller cycle, and that's where CCE lies. Now I'm saying practicing CCE is a very important part of the teacher's professional development. My further argument, which is a very simple one, but this relates to the little narratives that I talked about, this has to happen in a group. So I'm making the distinction following from what we said on the panel yesterday afternoon about reflection being individual, reflection can't be done by other people and so on. I think this professional growth cannot happen in total isolation, or what happens in isolation is limited. I'm saying working with others. So in Anna University, the group is not individual teachers improving themselves. They're working together to create a slightly better curricular framework within it to work. I'm hoping that the group at the HCU, as they proceed, will work together and produce a locally relevant syllabus within the framework of water, because they are autonomous in any case, but there still is a mandated syllabus. The claim I want to make with this sort of activity is, we've been talking about teachers improving themselves. We've been talking about CPD. And one of the factors we've talked about is motivation. Now, the fact that badly prepared and badly delivered refresher courses are unmotivating is not really anything that's new. I, as a student of psychology and motivation, see, if you're not working in a situation where you feel you have some control over your job, over the details of your job, whether you're a carpenter, whether you're a stonemason, whether you're a nurse tending to sick people, if everything you're supposed to do is in a manual, where is the involvement in your work? And the complaint we've heard from teachers, the teachers who come here and the teachers we as resource persons listen to, is that we have to cover portions, we are governed by rules, we are governed by rules, we have to do this, we have to do this. Without expanding that little space, I don't think CPD can happen. Because the professional development has to relate to the profession. Now, the profession is reduced to implementing orders, following a syllabus that's given, finishing it quickly, filling in forms, etc., etc. I don't think that CPD has much chance of taking off. We can produce systems for CC, but I don't think we can go much further. So that's a very simple idea that I'm sharing, that assessment practices, because if we believe if we're able to facilitate CCE, it is giving the teacher more space to act proactively. And working together, the feedback from CCE, etc., if people can get together and modify the syllabus, make it more flexible, change the order in which units are taught. A simple idea, which I got from a teacher. I've learned a great deal from my teachers. There's a teacher who said, high school teacher, all these poems, these are the days when Lucy Gray and Ozymandias and such things were the staple of the Telugu medium high school syllabus. Said, well, I just go through all the poems once. The first time, children just enjoy the sound and maybe learn a few words, etc., etc. And then later, we do it. Now, that's a freedom that most teachers don't have. Because what has to be done between the 15th of July and the 30th of July is this poem. You can't jump to the next. Now, this is what I mean by saying working under constraints. Now, the freedom to do that flexibility, to interpret your syllabus, modify it, I think has to be created, and we have to help teachers to create it. And I'm suggesting one mechanism. The occasional visitor, I was as an interlocutor, going there, helping people to get together and providing some support, is one channel through which teacher autonomy, teacher motivation, and teachers' continuing professional development can be taken further, along with the various other things that we are doing. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
We have time for about 3 questions and/or comments. Akhil? Yes, sir.
I'm Manhar Ibrahim from Pune University. I have been here for the last 6 months, and I feel that there is a kind of deficiency in the field of the spoken language, training teachers to be more fluent and to care more about speaking as a skill. Even the literature we are dealing with always focusing upon written activities, not spoken activities. So do you have as an institute or as people in charge for teacher education, do you have a specific programs for developing the speaking activities of teachers? That's my
I'll respond to that after the session. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I am Hariram Tiwari from Bihar. I have a question. How can we make learners more, how can we create interaction in the class? This is the question.
That's not anything that I can answer. It doesn't follow from anything I said. See, we have training programs for it, we have modules for it, we have refresher courses for it. So it has to be put into practice. So that's again, I'm sorry, that's not a question I can answer directly. There must have been other sessions where spoken English we took.
Chat about it later, these two, sir.
Sir,
Yeah, sorry, just a minute.
I'm Shrutapa from West Bengal. CCE has been introduced in West Bengal very recently and without much teacher preparation. And it's a question in the mind of every teacher, how to evaluate students while teaching, which has not been answered very well to them through any training at all. And to a sad extent, the whole system is falling through because teachers are reverting back to summative evaluation instead of formative, because simply they don't have the tools. Now, is there any short program or any thing on the website to fall back upon so that I can help my teachers as an administrator? I am the headmistress of the school. Though I do a lot of training with my teachers, but still I would like something on the internet which they could fall back upon when they go home.
There is a lot of stuff by way of manuals and guidelines. But my argument is it doesn't work. Because those of us who produce those manuals haven't taught in a primary school and conducted CCE. So until we have a lot of workshops from where we learn from teachers what they're trying to do, document that and share it on Facebook or wherever, I don't think CCE is going to go beyond these monstrous manuals that have been prepared. Maybe it's almost a cynical answer. You're doing some work with your teachers, and you probably know more than all the experts sitting over here together. Because we've never been in a primary school. We've never conducted CCE. Let's be frank about that. We've been touting it for the last 3 years. Which expert sitting over here has actually conducted CCE in a school or even in a training program? Okay, I'm putting this forcefully because we need to understand what the limitations of our expertise in the in-service mode is. Until we go sit with teachers, understand what they're doing, work with them, formulate not theory. We're talking about theorizing from practice. I'm a little skeptical about that. What we want is not theory from practice, but understandings, models, suggestions, questions which we can carry from one place to the other. This is what in-service work is. I haven't really answered your question, but my usual cheeky answer.
Okay,
Sir.
last question, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I am Ashok, sir, government teacher from Andhra Pradesh. Sir, you have told, sir, if teachers have no professional freedom, we can't grow. It's true, sir. And there is one example, sir, in the classrooms. So, actually, as per syllabus, we are expected to teach one thing, sir, to the students. But when we come to the actual position in the class, we have to say some other things, sir. There is so much gap between what is expected officially, that means as per syllabus, and actually the situation of the students, very poor condition. So if we have to help the students, we have to take up maybe some other topics. So here we have no freedom even to select the topics also, sir. then how to cope with this situation, sir? Because to grow professionally here, either we have to take up the things which are necessary from the student's point of view or syllabus point of view officially. So here is a big problem for the usually government teachers profession.
In my usual cheeky style, I'll pass that question on to the ELT profession. There are teachers telling us, we are trapped in a situation which is impossible, we want some guidance. So if we can stop our theory about prepackaged refresher courses and advice about conducting research and so on, and get closer to them and find out, we might find solutions. I think that's where we are, and I was just highlighting this problem of the need for us, along with this, to become a little more sensitive to teachers' needs as they voice it in their locations. A needs analysis done when we take them away, and I think Simon Borg said something about going away. We've been living in the luxury of going away situations, where teachers respond on our turf, the training platform that we occupy. We need to go there and listen to them. And we need to do that. Apart from saying that we need to do that, I really haven't said anything very important today, but I want to say that we must pay attention to this dimension of our work. Because I think our self-concept as resource persons also needs to be sustained. What we've been saying the last 4 years that I've been around is that what we are doing is pointless. Let's be honest. This is the confession we've been making. So we need to reflect and grow. We need CPD for our profession. That's really what my message is. Thank you.
Thank you.